Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you know I'm all about marriage. So we're going to get into this one very quickly this morning. I found this great video from Queen Sovereign, and she was talking about that there is a debate between Tony Gaskins and Ace Metaphor. And it's really interesting because I've talked a little bit about both of these gentlemen over the year that I've been publishing almost every day or every other day. And her argument, I think, leads into this concept of, do you only need married people, i.e., people out here, that's giving dating advice? Can you only listen to married people? And, Ace Metaphor evidently, doesn't lean that way, where Tony Gaskins does. And, there's a part of me, I listened to a little bit of this argument already, and there's a part of me, honestly, that leans a little bit both ways. I think that married people help you get married. I think that people that are single help you date well. But both of these things really aren't the same thing. And I have my issues, honestly, with both of these gentlemen, where I feel like Tony, his expectations are, to me, a little bit too low in the way that he encourages women to date. And I know a lot of men that are watching this particular video might not like me saying that, but it's more about not necessarily looking at the money side of things, but it's just looking at the quality of the gentleman inside the person, the quality of the man's mind, and the quality of his heart. That, to me, is the key to get married. Is not necessarily adjusting yourself to the average man. Where with Ace Metaphor, I feel like a lot of his advice to women seems to be almost very scripted. It's like he's thinking about the best way to get the women on his side. And he's not thinking about the gentleman, that would basically be marrying the woman. At least that's how it feels with a lot of his stuff that tends to go viral or to get a lot more attention. So that is kind of my stance on both of them. But let's watch a little bit of this video and then we will discuss it.
People who have not been in a successful relationship going on tour and creating their relationship narrative.
Ace Metaphor. Actually, it just entered the video.
That's crazy.
And I think he wants to actually respond on his perspective.
What is the purpose of dating?
If you're being intentional, is to find a husband or wife.
Correct.
Is that the reason why everyone dates?
If someone is dating for sex, us as people with a platform should be promoting what is going to benefit society, not what is going to confuse society.
When the last time you've been actively dating multiple people?
Dating is principle based. It doesn't matter if it's 2023 or 1903. Love does not change because God is love.
But to say how things should work for all people and dismiss everyone else is irresponsible.
Hey, calm down, though, bro, because you're getting a little too much bass in your voice. Living this as a husband and a
your
father,
truth,
which is successful for
you
and for our community. It's not just for me.
I'll just give a quick little bit. I don't know what it is, but I'm really, really tired of men saying that marriage like you being married, having a 2-parent household, you creating a nuclear family, you starting a family, yada, 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 benefits society. It doesn't benefit society. It benefits the people that are in power because they are making money off of the fact that you have to go to work. Okay, so you have to go to work, which means that anywhere between 8 to 12, sometimes 16 hours a day, you won't even be able to spend time with your family. And you're making someone else money. And then when it comes time, by the time you come home, you're exhausted, you're tired. You don't have enough time in order to spend time with your kids. So this whole rhetoric, especially from married men or men who are trying to dangle the carrot and try to convince women to get married, they're always trying to make it seem as if it is something that you should be doing for the collective, that it is something that you should be doing for society. And that's the reason why the people are empowered. They have so much wealth and they have so much money because they were lying. Okay. When you have a family, you no longer, I don't want to say no longer, but you are kind of robbed of the ability to focus on what your own purpose is, because people in power, the societal standard, is trying to tell you what your purpose is. And this is what Ace Metaphor is trying to argue with Tony Gaskins. We came in here alone, and we came in here alone for a reason. If everything was meant for the society and for the collective, you wouldn't be coming in here. You wouldn't be coming in this earth alone, because you have your own purpose as an individual. And so society tries to tell you, no, your purpose is to find someone. You're supposed to go to college. You're supposed to get married. You're supposed to buy a home, and you're supposed to have children. And that is your purpose. And so that's where all of this debate kind of stemmed from. Okay, so
I think, you can see a little bit about the debate, and then you can see a little bit about Queen Sovereign's point. I would have to respectively disagree, but I do understand where she's coming from. And this is one of those things when I talk about on this channel about the degrees of things and the way people kind of swing their narrative. About 6 months ago, that was my big thing. I was probably talking about that, every other video, where I would basically talk about how the media, even social media, tries to kind of curb something, right? Tries to build a narrative. And so I believe what Queen Sovereign is saying is that Tony Gaskins, the narrative that he is pushing, doesn't work for everybody. And Ace Metaphor, even in that little clip, kind of did say that. You're putting everybody under the same umbrella. But see, I've been saying that off and on this whole time to agree, and that's the part that I agree with Queen Sovereign here, is that not everybody fits into this. But we have to understand what the social narrative is trying to say. See, again, she is a woman that walks in power. She is a woman that basically is fully in control of her life, but she is not normal. She is not the typical woman. The typical woman doesn't want power. The typical woman doesn't want to be on YouTube. If the typical woman wanted to be on YouTube, we would literally have like 1,000 more, 1,000 times, more YouTube channels, right? Or even 1,000,000 times more, right? When we start to look, and I've talked to you guys a lot about personality, those that hang out on this channel, and if anybody's new, because they came based off of, Queen Sovereign's picture, on this particular video, you have to understand that even if you look at Myers-Briggs, there are 16 different personalities. And some personalities are about 1% of the population, some personalities are 2% of the population, and then some personalities are 15% of the population. And the way that they come up with the average person is they generally will say, okay, what personalities are more common in our world, right? And when they come up with policies, whether it's the government or whether it is, local, or even when people are preaching from the pulpit, they're almost always talking about the average person. So if they can find 5 personalities that make up 45% of the culture, they're going to preach mostly to those. And one of the things that I'm always talking about that's very difficult when you're actually talking more like what Ace Metaphor is leaning toward, and even what Queen Sovereign is leaning toward, is it's very difficult to talk to all the smaller individual people. And if you've been following me for a while, you will know I talk about that all the time, that is like the literal difficulty of one of the issues that I talk about on this channel. It's the same way about 50% of the people that follow me are women, and about 50% of the people that follow me are men. In fact, last year it was 60-40, but this year so far it's been closer to 50-50. All right? And see, that is huge. Because like even right now, as Queen Sovereign is doing this is actually a live, and I can look in her chat, and most of the people in her chat are women. So she's primarily talking to women. And it's easier to make a point to when you're only talking to one gender versus trying to talk to both and trying to convince both of what you're saying. And again, no disrespect to her, we want to get to the, to the root and to the deepness of everything that we're talking about. But I think you have to see it from that perspective. And like I said, growing up, I found out my personality is one of those that's like 2% of the whole world. And it always frustrated me because I would always sit under people that would be giving me advice, and their advice had no nuance. It was always do A and that's it. Never do A or B or C or D or E. But see, A works for most people. So her argument here about everybody trying to get married and working 16 hours a day about family, that is totally incorrect. Okay, a lot of people, okay, if you do, get your education, if you do, go through and find the right position, and if you do get married, you're going to work less. You're going to have more money. You're going to have more stability. And people aren't out here making all this money off of you. You're actually able to position yourself, if you're smart about it, to actually have a better life. So people that are married, people, that are doing things in the way God wants, people that are educated actually have better lives. They don't have the stressful life that a lot of single people have, or people that, didn't quite get an education. And y'all know me, I'm not so much in love with education, but I think you can educate yourself and become a real estate agent. You can educate yourself and become a trucker. You can educate yourself and do some things in IT, right? So you can do a trade. But the bottom line is, two people bringing home $50,000 a year will have, and working together will have a better life, okay, than single people making $50,000 and living individually. All right. And that's also the reason why a lot of foreigners, they even double down, where two married couples will live in one house, or three families will live in one house. And they'll do that for like 10 years while all of them build up their money. So now they have $350,000 going into one household. Okay, and so they're sharing the bills across the board, and then they'll build up, like I say, $200,000 or $300,000, and then they'll go out and buy a house with cash. And that's how they're able to do more with less. So no, the concept that people are making money when you get married I'm 100% not in agreement on that part of her argument. The other parts of her argument, I am in agreement with, but not that part.
That I actually have on here, the brother Ace Metaphor actually just entered
the chat.
It just entered the video.
That's crazy.
And I think he wants to actually respond on his perspective, because the brother is literally in here backstage right now.
Wow.
As I'm taking video calls. Now, if that's okay, do you mind me bringing up Ace and let him say his point?
Oh my.
Okay, so I don't want to go through this whole particular video. I was hoping it was going to be more of her talking and less of her watching a video, because she's actually watching the entire video. But I did want to go a little bit more into just the whole concept of the way that, people are, again, viewing marriage. And like I said, for me, I view marriage differently. And this is one of the main reasons why. And I think in their argument that they're making, their argument, and part of Ace Metaphor's argument, he's literally was talking about it, before I cut it. But his argument is that only a small group of people, or only a portion of people, I should say, are dating for marriage, right? And he was saying people date for multiple different reasons, not just marriage. And I agree with that. And that's honestly been one of my arguments, again, for the last year or so on this channel, is that I tell people all the time, I am not a dating coach. People like to call me a dating coach. I was hanging out with Apostle Fabian, recently, and he even said, "Oh, Jay, you're a dating coach, right?" And I'm like, and I didn't say anything because honestly, I didn't want to derail our conversation. But I don't consider myself a dating coach at all. I consider myself, if anything, a marriage coach. And I've always told people, if you're not interested in marriage, don't follow me. Unfollow me. If you think I'm always going to beat up on women or beat up on men, unfollow me. Don't follow me. Because the only thing that I'm here to do is to help you get married. And the reason why I'm like this is because of Ace Metaphor in the way that he's talking. And again, nothing against the brother. But the bottom line is, for me, the problem is marriage. We need more marriage. And there are people out here that don't believe that we need it. And see, that's what I've always been trying to tell you all for a long period of time, is that you cannot say that the person that you are literally following, it's like, what is their purpose? What are they really trying to teach you? And you know what? Now that I said it, I am going to let you watch a little bit about what Ace Metaphor said, just to make sure that you hear it from him and it doesn't sound like you're just hearing it from me.
How can someone give relationship advice that leads to a successful marriage if they are not married?
So the answer to the question is, if that person's individual goal is marriage. I want to first say that. If that person's individual goal is marriage, that's one thing. And for that being said, there are people, to Tony's point, that have navigated that course and can give better insight if the goal is to be married. And you can look at to their track history. This is why we have married people on our panel.
Okay.
But not everybody's goal in dating is marriage. Brothers, you know, for every one person that's dating to try to find marriage, there's 3 or 4 people dating just to find themselves. There's 4 or 5 people dating in an experimental way. There's 6 or 7 people dating just to distract themselves from a heartbreak. So not everybody that's out here dating is dating to be married. And some people are dating just for fun. They're dating from a recreational sense. We can up here on this podcast say, oh, in a perfect world, everybody would be dating for marriage. But this world ain't perfect. Most of your listeners have been led on or are misled or time has been wasted on somebody they thought was intentionally dating, but that person was just recreational or experimental dating. So my point is, yes, if the goal is marriage and 2 people link and both of their goals are united as marriage, yes, a spiritual path for that is and spiritual advice is a good place to start. Somebody like Tony will be a great place to start. But getting to a person and finding a person and avoiding people that are not there to get you there is also a path too. And there are people that have been in this dating situation so long that they know how to recognize red flags a little bit better than people that haven't.
Okay, so he said it. And that's the point that I've been trying to make. What are the people that are giving you advice? What are they giving you advice for? And like I've told you all before, if you notice, most people don't do this. They never, ever tell you. It takes some kind of interview. It takes some kind of situation for the truth to come out. See, it's like I said, Tony, in all the videos that I've watched of him, he gives pretty good advice. But the bottom line is he's always telling women to protect themselves from the men. Because in his mind, the woman is going to marry an average man. She's going to marry a man that doesn't really take care of her and doesn't really see, the goodness and the way that she can fully open up, to him. He just doesn't see that. That's why he's always saying, oh, don't tell these men your secrets and you have to keep this to yourself and don't say this and don't say that. He says that in a lot of his videos. But then Ace Metaphor will sit up there and beat up men, in a lot of his stuff, in the way that he, yells at the screen, different things like that, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to teach you to date well, to date around certain people and different things like that. But see, that's the whole thing. But he's never just coming out and saying, hey, most of y'all that's following me, y'all ain't never gonna find nobody that wants to marry you. I cannot teach you how to get married. He doesn't talk like that. And I've talked about this kind of stuff, even with Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey said straight up, okay, my book, I primarily wrote it for my daughters. Okay, so let's analyze this for a second. Steve Harvey even at that time, was a multimillionaire. Okay, his daughters are never going to have the life of the average person in America. Never. But yet, millions upon millions of women are buying the book. The book can't help you, boo, because it deals with a certain type of man and a certain type of environment. But he's not going to come forward and say that. He's not going to say that the middle class black woman and the upper class black woman, which is like 20% of the population, are going to do better, okay, than the other women. He'll never say that, ever, because that messes with his money. Half of the information out here, when people are saying it, they're really speaking to a certain audience. And they just are blindly act like they're not talking to everybody else. Why? Because they make more money that way. It is easier to get a narrow, small audience believing in hope. And that's why I'm always telling women, a lot of people out here are just selling you hope. They're not selling you solutions. They're not selling you strategy. They're selling you hope. And then they make all this money, off of it. And then you're still sitting there, quote unquote, holding the bag at the end of the day. And I'm not talking about money in the bag in this particular situation. And it doesn't do you any good. And the reason why it always works is because 80% of anybody is always truth. That's just period. I mean, Tony Gaskins, me, Ace Metaphor, Steve Harvey, even, Kevin Samuels. If 80% of what we told you wasn't at least a little bit of truth, you wouldn't listen to the differentiating 15 to 20%. But see, that 15 to 20%, okay, is the key to what you want out of life. It's like I said, most people, period, I would probably agree with 85% of the stuff that comes out of their mouth. I'm just being real. Because a lot of it, life is life. If a man is treating a woman bad or a woman is treating a man bad, we always say, leave him, leave her. Okay? If you gotta, get your clothes right, get your appearance right. I haven't found too many people that say you shouldn't do that. But the key elements are, okay, how do you navigate? For me, I'm like, okay, give somebody 30 to 90 days. If you don't see that they are a wife or a husband in that time, drop them. Drop them. Yes, I know it's going to hurt. Yes, I know you want to be in that relationship, but drop them and do your best not to have sex with them, in that 90 days. Steve Harvey's version of that is, get out here, date, don't have sex for 90 days. He doesn't tell you to do your real evaluation in 90 days. He tells you to do your evaluation up front. But what that does is it opens the door, okay, for you to misread them on the first couple of dates, or for them to push forth their representative, as people say. And then now you're blinded by that. And then it falls off for you. I've talked about always look at the company that they keep, the 4 or 5 friends that's around them. See if you can get around their friends. Ask them about their friends. I don't care if you're male or female. Okay, find out about their social media. I'm always telling people, you show me your social media, I'll show you your future. So a woman who is listening to a whole lot of podcasts that are always angry, or a woman who's watching Shira 7, okay, then again, that's telling you the mindset that she has. And same thing with a lot of men that are heavy duty in red pill. If somebody watches 1 or 2 red pill, or a woman watches 1 or 2 Shira 7, okay, 1 or 2. I understand you're curious, you want to see. But if that's heavy duty what you're watching, 50% of what you're watching pops up that way, that's something for you to think about. And see, that's always been my argument. My argument is you have to understand what these people are trying to do. What is the advice that they're giving you and why? Because it's like I said, if I am basically teaching you how to mine for gold, or at least you think I'm trying to teach you to mine for gold, and we're in this mine and we're working and you keep picking up little silvery things and you're like, oh, this ain't gold, and you keep throwing it over your shoulder. And then I walk out with, $1 million worth of rocks, and then you look over and you're like, I thought we was mining for gold. That's all silver. And I'm like, yeah, I said we was mining for expensive rocks, expensive, elements. I never said we was mining for gold. You assumed we were mining for gold. And so all that time you've wasted because you didn't know what the purpose was. And some people are teaching you to date well. Some people are teaching you to get married and what to do once you're in a marriage. Some people are just teaching you how to heal from breakup. Some people are teaching you, how to make your marriage so it'll never fail. And like what I've told you is I can help you get married. But when it comes to sustaining your marriage, you need to reach into places, okay, that have books and seminars and other things like that to help you sustain your marriage. I've been open and honest about that since day one. I say it all the time. I say you have to safeguard everything. You cannot give the devil an inch. The people that's been following me for a long period of time know I say that all the time. So what's the purpose out here? I put it right there on the screen. So again, I'm just saying through this debate, through this information that we're learning, make sure, because see, you can get caught up in the drama of the debate of these two men. You can get caught up in that drama. But see, that drama is not really what's going to help you. And see, that's what, a lot of people would do. They would get caught up in the drama. But it's not about the drama. It's about, do you understand which of these people is going to help you? There's going to be people that need to be under Ace Metaphor. They just want to date well. They want to understand how to date well. They don't want to get married. And then you have other people that will learn a little bit from Tony. And then you'll have other people that will learn something from me. But the bottom line is you need to understand why you're listening to somebody. And then when you're with that person, I'll be honest with you, and this is the confusing part for a lot of people, because I know straight up, you're going to want to watch all these different people because, like I said, you're looking for drama, you're looking for this, you're looking for that. But the problem is it can confuse you because you'll be sitting there thinking something that maybe I said that contradicts something that Tony said, that contradicts something that Ace said. Or you will carry the weight of all this stuff on your shoulders. One of the ladies that came out to Christian Singles Connect, she actually said it one time. She was like, well, men want us to do A and B and C and D. And she was like, it's all too much. And I told her straight up, I said, I never told you to do any of that. I said, all I've ever told you to do for what we're trying to do out here, Christian Singles Connect, and on this channel, I said, all I've ever told you to do is follow the non-negotiables, take ownership and select well. And that first 90 days is your time to select well. I've never told you that you have to go 50-50. I've never told you, that, you got to bend over backwards for these men, date poor men, all this other kind of stuff. I was like, because that was part of the argument I was making with that lady at the time, because she was, talking about herself. I said, you're confusing me with other people you're listening to. And it's muddying up the information. And see, that's something else that goes on, because you literally have thousands of dating people that are talking about dating. And I've kind of learned that, like I said, over the time that I've been out here, because my social media, I do follow a lot of these people because evidently I'm doing reaction videos and I'm talking about the same stuff that they're talking about. So I need to kind of keep up with them. Right. And if you're doing this, so I see them. It's like it's more and more of them, seems like every day, because everybody thinks that they have the magic formula. Right. And it's like I've told you all before, I wouldn't be out here if it wasn't for God, because I don't like this space. And I think this space gets into your head. And I've even found out, even in my own dating, that a lot of this has come in and poisoned a lot of the dates that I'll be on, because the back of my brain has spent so much time studying this stuff, and it's a crazy amount that it makes it very difficult, to show up as my authentic self, because literally I have all of it swimming in the back of my head, and it's very easy for me to get caught up with something I just talked about in one video or I've heard in somebody else's video. And one of the things that I'm definitely going to encourage you all to do is you cannot over listen to this stuff. You can't overdo it, because if you overdo it, it is going to show up in your dating. And again, I did a video about that where a lady, actually reached out to me, because that's what happened. She was basically talking to this guy and he just couldn't stop talking about all of the different dating advice that he had heard online from different people. And she was like, I am not one of these women that hurt you. Why are you acting like I'm going to hurt you? Why are you acting like I'm after your money? Why are you acting like I'm this, that, and the third? But the man had just spent too much time listening to all these other people. And that's why I've told you all before in Proverbs, and y'all know I throw it up on the screen. In Proverbs, it says, do not go to angry people or you'll learn their ways and learn to be, come like them. So whatever you're listening to, whoever is in your ear, those people are talking to your spirit, and it is going to come out. It's going to come out. Okay. And that's another reason why I talk to both men and women, because what I'm trying to do is create a space. And I even interview both men and women. I try to create a space in which people can understand, okay, the fact that the purpose is for both sides to get along. And that there's things that men are doing that are hurting themselves. And there are things that women are doing that are hurting themselves. But what we don't need to do is we don't need to be angry about what the other side is looking for. Because when we do that, we think we're justified. But what's really happening is we're taking ourselves out of the game. So anyway, I thought this was really interesting. I really could do 5 videos off this because it's so deep. So let me know how you guys feel in the comments. This might be another one where I really kind of pay attention to the comments because y'all know I don't really do that a lot because I'm just too busy. For all those that are new to the channel, I actually have a 9 to 5. So I do this kind of on the weekends and, at night and different things like that. So it just takes a lot of my time, to go through and respond to everybody's comment. Anyway, please like, please subscribe. Remember that on every other Thursday, we do a live. So come out for those. I mean, we had a lot of people came out, the other day. I think it was like maybe 20, 21 people literally on the Zoom call. And then we had lots of people in the chat. So come on out. It's getting bigger and bigger. It's getting better and better, and it is great to hear from you and, your side of things. Anyway, again, please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.